The DORIAN mode is a minor scale with a raised 6th scale degree, and it's quite possibly the most versatile of the 7 major modes. It's also arguably the most popular mode in general, probably for its versatility. Some instances of the DORIAN mode in action evoke a cool, mysterious vibe. Some make a grand, epic, heroic statement. Some feel dark and distant, while others feel downright playful. It all comes down to how the characteristic raised 6th is treated, and I want to explore the different ways this note can be handled to achieve these different effects. First off, what if the raised 6th is not moved or resolved at all? If we take a minor chord and just play the flat 6th on top, for example a B flat over a D minor chord, you can feel how badly that note wants to resolve down to the 5th. If we make it a raised 6th instead, a B natural, we still feel that note wanting to resolve down to the 5th, but it's not quite as urgent. Keeping it hanging on top of the chord like this feels mysterious and questioning rather than super dissonant, but it still does have a severity to it. This feeling is leveraged in lots of video game tunes to create a dark, searching quality. Midna's Lament from Twilight Princess sets up a 4-bar intro outlining a beautiful D minor 9 chord on piano, and then, in the very first melodic phrase, ends off on this raised 6th, B, that just hangs in the air, unresolved. This is the music that scores that famous scene where you're trapped as a wolf, racing across Hyrule Field with your partner Midna on your back, trying to get her help as fast as you can. The fate of your friend is up in the air, and leaving this raised 6th unresolved, ringing out over top of the tonic minor chord, emphasizes that uneasiness, albeit in a very beautiful way. The Dirtmouth theme from Hollow Knight uses similar musical techniques to similar musical effect. A solo piano outlines the tonic E minor chord in this arpeggiated figure, while the melody plays over top, once again leaving off the first phrase with a big raised 6th, C sharp this time, hanging in the air. Here, the searching, unresolved quality supports the depressing and lonely aspects of the town, making you feel just how much has been lost since this place was abandoned. This way of treating the raised 6th is very similar to how we can treat the 9th over top of a minor chord. It wants to resolve down, but if you don't let it, you get a potent sound. In both of our previous examples, the 9th is also present in the harmony, supporting the 6th and helping access that darker side of the DORIAN mode. The following examples are very similar in that they use a tonic minor chord for an extended period with the DORIAN raised 6th used on top, but they sound much less severe for 2 reasons. The raised 6th of each chord resolves down to the 5th in each case rather than just hanging in the air, and there are no 9ths in the chords adding to that heartbreak factor. Cyan's theme from Final Fantasy VI opens with 8 bars of a C minor 7 chord, and the melody gives us several variations of the same core melodic idea, which is starting on the flat 7th of the chord B flat, moving down to the raised 6th A, and then resolving down to the 5th of the chord G. These A naturals are embellished with other notes that dress up the basic 3-note figure, but don't change its fundamental sound. There's still a mysterious quality to the music. It's like the raised 6th raises a lot of questions, but unlike our earlier examples, the 5th comes in to give us some answers. The first battle theme from Chrono Trigger uses the exact same idea over a much more rhythmically upbeat arrangement. This time we're in the key of D minor, and in fact the entire track plays out over a D minor chord. The melody starts out on the root, D, and then walks a windy path right down the D DORIAN scale. This raised 6th is embellished again on its way down to resolve to the 5th, but again these embellishments don't get in the way of the structure of the melody as it moves down from the flat 7th to the raised 6th, which creates an immediately noticeable sense of curiosity, and then resolves down to the 5th, which sets us back in familiar territory. Besides being mysterious or suspenseful, the Dorian Mode's raised sixth can also be used to lighten up a minor key through the use of the major 4 chord. The 4 chord in a minor key is naturally a minor chord, but raising the 6th scale degree of the key raises the 3rd of this 4 chord. Putting in a major chord where you'd naturally expect a minor chord will always make a piece of music feel brighter, and adding to this effect is the Dorian Mode's naturally brighter sound compared to the other minor modes. You don't need to worry about keeping your whole piece within the Dorian Mode either. Even music that's otherwise purely written in a minor key, with a tone so dark it shops at Hot Topic, will cheer up a bit when a major 4 chord comes along. Olberic's theme from Octopath Traveler is in a minor key, well, a few minor keys actually, and uses dominant 5 chords and minor 4 chords for a very strong, dark, serious sound. But take a listen to the end and you'll see the cheerless minor vibe broken up with a repeated D minor to G progression in the key of D minor, a minor 1 to the major 4. Another example comes from Never Forget from Halo 3. The piece starts off heartfelt but downcast, building through a repeated E minor to C to D progression which sets us firmly in an E natural minor sound. But after the first 8 bars, we move into a repeated E minor to A major progression, and you can hear that major 4 chord immediately inject a sense of optimism into the music. In both cases, coming out of a natural minor key with explicit flat 6s used, and then moving into a Dorian 1 to major 4 progression is the key to this uplifting effect. Starting in a dark place and then moving into a brighter one has a much stronger emotional effect than beginning in a bright place and staying there. Now, the voice leading of that 6th in both examples has the 5th of the key rising up to that raised 6th, and that upward motion is, I think, a part of the lightening effect. But it's also worth noting how the harmonization of this note affects the sound. When the raised 6th is used over top of the tonic minor chord, say a C sharp over an E minor chord, there's a tritone relationship between the 3rd, G, and the 6th, which adds a certain amount of tension to the music. Harmonizing the same C sharp note with the 4 chord, A, removes any dissonant intervals within the chord and lets that raised 6th just focus on bringing a brighter sound to the music. Now there's a middle ground between the dark, mysterious, tense vibes of our first few examples and the optimism of our last couple of examples, and that's to bring in the major 4 chord, but balance it out with other darker harmonic techniques around it. The two most common techniques to use in this way are the tonic bass pedal and the mixing of raised and flattened sixths. The Dark World theme from A Link to the Past uses both. It starts off with the horns walking up the C Dorian scale from the 5th up to the root, harmonized in thirds to get that raised 6th on the back half of each bar of the phrase. This happens over top of a steady C bass note, hammering home the tonic to temper the brightness of the raised 6th. The intro, with this pounding C bass note grounding us in a C Dorian sound, immediately sets us up to set off on an adventure through dangerous, unexplored territory. The main melody of the tune comes in with the major 4 chord F used pretty much right away, but this time the lightness of it is tempered with the use of the flat 6th immediately after. The phrase starts on the tonic C minor, moves to the major 4 chord F, then drops down to an A flat major 7 chord, built on an A flat note countering the A natural used up until this point, and then a B flat chord takes us back up to our tonic C minor. The The voice leading used in both the melody and the harmony starts on the 5th of the tonic C minor chord, moves up to the raised 6th over this F chord, and then resolves the 6th back down to the 5th, where it naturally wants to go. But this resolved 5th is the note harmonized by the flat 6 chord, becoming the major 7th of our A flat major 7 chord. The quintessential Dorian voice leading move is harmonized with the least Dorian chord possible. This is classic Koji Kondo, always playing with our expectations every chance he gets. The Halo theme shows us another clear example of the same idea. After the famous male choir intro brings in an E Dorian melody to evoke the style of Gregorian chant, which lends the piece an ancient and mystical quality, the strings bring in this riff that takes the 5th of the key, B, raises it up to the raised 6th, C sharp, lowers it down to the flat 6th, C, and then up to the flat 7th D, all held down by a steady tonic E note in the bass. These pieces both sound heroic, but not in the way that the heroic examples in my Mixolydian mode video did. These two examples aren't music for a 12-year-old kid going out on an exciting adventure and making new friends along the way. No, this is humanity's last stand, and these pieces capture a sense of determination, of boldness in the face of danger that works perfectly for the tone of these games. Now, I would be remiss not to mention one final aspect of the Dorian mode that you see quite frequently, and that is the scale's inherent funkiness. If you're trying to create a funky vibe, the first thing you're going to do is jam out on one dominant chord for 20 minutes straight. But the second thing you're going to do is this. Take a minor chord, add the flat 7th on top, move the flat 7th down a half step to the raised 6th, and then repeat until you pass out. So far, we've been talking only about how the raised 6th wants to resolve down to the 5th in the Dorian mode, and this feels to me like the strongest resolution for it. But letting the 6th move up to the flat 7th of the key creates a real levity that is somehow just perfect for upbeat, funky music. You can hear it in the verses of Persona 5's Last Surprise, with its alternating 1 to 4 D minor to G progression.
Try to run me through, hold on, think again, don't you know what you're starting?
You can hear it in Marshmallow Castle from Kirby Superstar with its alternating 1 to 4 C minor to F progression. You can hear it in the intro to the Steam Gardens theme from Super Mario Odyssey with its alternating 1 to 4 E minor to A progression. And I'm sure you can find many, many more examples out there if you feel the need. An extension of this same voice leading concept is the 5-6 flat 7-6, where the 6th note comes from the 5th before resolving up to the flat 7th, which is also repeated for as long as you can stand it. Check it out in the Stage 4 theme from Kirby's Block Ball, a tune I covered in a video a little while ago. This vamp still kinda has that classic funk energy, even though there's not much else you could point to that would tie the track to that genre. Another interesting example of the same voice leading in a decidedly not funky context is Ocarina of Time's Song of Storms, where the 5-6 flat 7-6 motion is harmonized with a minor 2 chord, E minor in the key of D minor, in place of the typical major 4 chord. The result of this upbeat voice leading harmonized with a minor chord takes the sense of levity and puts a bit of a gloomy spin on it. A kind of cheeky, you seem cool but I'm not sure if you're dangerous type of quality that is perfectly encapsulated by the Windmill Hut guy. I hope this video gave you a little bit of insight into some of the different sides of the Dorian mode, or, if nothing else, I hope it was fun to hear all these examples back to back. Thanks so much for watching, consider supporting the channel on Patreon if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.